Houston, and we want to welcome you to our live coverage of the launch of Reed Wiseman, Max Sarayev, and Alexander Gerst to the International Space Station. Launch tonight is scheduled for 2:57 p.m. Central Time. It'll be 1:57 a.m. at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, which you're going to be getting a look at in just a moment. The rocket currently fueled and ready to go. It'll be launching from site number 1. This is the historic launch pad that was the site of the Sputnik launch, as well as that of Yuri Gagarin, the first human to ever go into space. There's the rocket now. The weather in Baikonur currently warm in about the mid-70s with just a few clouds. Great weather for the launch this evening here in Houston or early morning over in Baikonur. The 3 crew members are about to begin a single-day flight to the International Space Station, with docking scheduled just 6 hours after launch at 8:48 p.m. Central Time tonight. They'll be docking with the Rassvet module, which is a port that faces the nadir, or the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment on board the International Space Station. Once they're up there, they'll be joining the current station residents on board. Right now on there is Commander Steve Swanson from NASA and flight engineers Alexander Skvortsov and Oleg Artemyev. Those 3 have been on board the ISS since March 27th, and they'll be on there until they return in mid-September. Meanwhile, though, here in Houston, the team in Mission Control will be monitoring tonight's launch and getting updates on the flight from their Russian counterparts. Today's flight director for right now is Ed Van Cise, and at the Capcom position in the blue shirt right above him is Randy Bresnik. So 1 spaceflight veteran and 2 first-time space flyers are going to be launching aboard this Soyuz TMA-13M spacecraft to the International Space Station tonight. Let's take a quick look at the crew of Reed Wiseman, Max Sarayev, and Alexander Gerst.
Introducing the Expedition 4041 flight crew. NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman is a naval aviator and test pilot. He has a master's degree in systems engineering from Johns Hopkins University. In 2009, while serving as a lieutenant commander on the aircraft carrier Eisenhower, Reed was selected by NASA to become an astronaut candidate. In his spare time, Reed enjoys golf, woodworking, and running. Max Sarayev returns to the International Space Station. A graduate from the Kasha Air Force Pilot School in 1994, Max received a law degree from the Russian Academy of Civil Service in 2007. While serving as a flight engineer during Expedition 22, he performed a 5-hour, 44-minute spacewalk. Max is a qualified scuba diver. From Germany, first-time space flyer Alexander Gerst received a master's degree in Earth Sciences from the Victoria University in Wellington, New Zealand. In 2010, Alex graduated with a doctorate in natural sciences at the Institute of Geophysics from the University of Hamburg. He was selected as an ESA astronaut in May 2009. Alex is a skydiver and a snowboarder. Reed, Max, and Alexander will remain on board through the end of Expedition 41 in November.
That again, a quick look at the 3 launching today. Here now looking live at the pad down in Baikonur. Reed Wiseman, Max Sarayev, and Alexander Gerst currently inside of that Soyuz. We're right now 53 minutes and 30 seconds away from the launch of this Expedition 40 crew aboard the Soyuz TMA-13M to the International Space Station. Here you can see their launch site down in the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Again, the 3 crew already loaded on board and getting ready for a launch just about 53 minutes from now. So the NASA astronaut currently on board that spacecraft, Reed Wiseman, has been in training for more than 2 years for his spaceflight. And just 2 weeks ago, one of our NASA public affairs officers, Pat Ryan, had a chance to talk with Wiseman while he was in Star City, Russia, about his training, some of the final preparations he was undergoing for his spaceflight, and what it's going to be like on launch day.
I want to start by asking you about the training. You're getting ready to put into
practice everything you've been learning for the past couple of years. What has it been like traveling all around the world, getting ready for this flight?
It's been great. I love the travel. I love the people I've met along the way. The relationships that I've built in Germany, in Japan, and especially over here in Russia. Back in Houston, we've got a great training team, and now we're going to transition over to a great mission control team. I have my lead flight director, my lead flight surgeon are with me in Russia. So really, it's just making all these relationships around the world has been absolutely fantastic.
I wondered about that. Is there a big part of the training that's involved with teaching you guys how to deal with your different flight control teams around the world, because they're critical in getting the mission accomplished?
I think we don't really have a specific training program for that, but to me it's the exposure to their countries. So just going over there and training with them, you're going to live for a week or so in Germany, a week or so in Japan, and then I've spent more than a year in Russia. There's no way you can spend some time immersed in these cultures and not pull out the details that you need to. So it's been really good for me to see all the different sides, and there are definitely differences.
Has the experience for you of having been the Capcom here in Mission Control help you figure out how you deal with the ground?
Let's wait maybe a day for the answer to that question, but I definitely think it will help me, because I know the intensity that Mission Control works at, and I know how many people are involved in making these decisions, and there is no way that knowledge will not help me during my 6 months in space.
Your launch day, tell me what that's going to be like. What is that day for a crew as you're getting ready to leave the planet?
It's going to probably continue to be surreal, and I'm sure I will have moments of just, I don't want to say pure panic, but pure adrenaline just coursing through me crazy. 6 months ago, I was in Baikonur for the launch of Rick Mastracchio, Koichi Wakata, and Mikhail Turin, and I got to see every step of the way for them, and really, really neat. The formal ceremonies that you go to, the last time that you're going to see your spouse, going to suit up in the spacesuit, and then heading out to the launch pad. And we got to ride with those guys all the way out to the launch pad, and they were ready. I mean, they were ready. It was really neat. It was very surreal to be with them, and I imagine for us it'll be pretty much the same, but I think we'll be joking around a little bit more than they were.
On this ride in the Soyuz, you're going to be in the left seat, to Max Sarayev's left, as essentially the co-pilot on this Soyuz. How is that going to compare to flying fighter jets?
Flying fighter jets, in the fighter jet, you're in control of your destiny there. You have the control stick, you have the throttles, and then the systems are pretty automated to keep you going. On the Soyuz, on the other hand, it's a completely automated system, and you're only there to recover in case of a failure or an emergency. And I've spent the last year of my life really, really honing these skills. And Max and I are ready. They can throw anything at us in the training flow, and we can pretty much handle it. So I really love sitting in the left seat. I absolutely love working with Max Sarayev. He's a great commander, and we're ready. It's going to be fun.
And that, again, a couple of quick words with NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman, currently seated inside the rocket, already getting in-cabin views. You can follow along with each one of the crew members on the Soyuz mission by following them on Twitter. Astronaut Reed Wiseman can be found at twitter.com/astroreed, Max Sarayev at twitter.com/msarayev, and you can follow ESA's astronaut Alexander Gerst at twitter.com/astroalex. Right now we're under 50 minutes, just a little over 48.5 minutes before launch. Liftoff again scheduled at 2:57 p.m. Central, 1:57 a.m. in the morning in Baikonur. This mission launching under the call sign Cephei, the Russian word for Cephas, the king of Ethiopia in Greek mythology, and a constellation found in the northern hemisphere. It's the same call sign used by Sarayev back on his flight aboard Soyuz TMA-13 back to the ISS with Expedition 21 crew 4.5 years ago. The flying figure on the Soyuz TMA-13M mission logo is the statue called the Fisherman. It greets visitors in Baikonur, Kazakhstan, where they are launching from, upon leaving the airport and entering the town, symbolic of where humans left the planet for the very first time to explore. The object that you might be seeing hanging over the commander's seat during the ascent is a toy giraffe named Giraffity. It was a gift given to Wiseman by his young daughters for good luck on the mission. So the Soyuz rocket that they are currently seated in stands 162 feet tall and weighs 680,000 pounds, consisting of the Soyuz TMA-13M spacecraft inside a protective shroud at the top and the three-stage Soyuz FG booster below. The spacecraft was mated to its booster in Baikonur on Sunday. The entire rocket then transported by rail car to the launch pad after sunrise. The Soyuz spacecraft and its 3 crew members aboard sits high above 3 stages of the Soyuz booster, which uses kerosene and liquid oxygen as the propellant. The first stage has 4 liquid engines strapped to the side of the core vehicle. Each will burn for about 1 minute 58 seconds before they drop away. At that point, the rocket will be 30 miles in altitude and downrange 73 miles with a velocity of 3,937 miles per hour. The core engine of the first stage will also serve as the second stage, and it will continue to burn after that first stage for about 4 minutes and 57 seconds into the flight. So again, this animation, you can see the first stage taking off, those 4 solid rocket boosters and the core engine powering it. Once they reach that height of about 30 miles, the 4 strap-on boosters breaking away, the core engine continuing to fire as the second stage. There, the launch abort system also detaching. At this point, the core engine of the first stage serving as the second stage, continuing to burn for about 4 minutes 57 seconds, the launch shroud detaching. The third stage of the rocket has a single engine that will ignite just before separation of the second stage, helping to push it away, and will burn until 8 minutes and 45 seconds into the flight. At that point, the Soyuz will be in its preliminary orbit of 143 by 118 miles. Another look back at the pad real quick, 45 minutes from launch. So again, this a live look, getting live views and waves from the crew inside. There you can see Alexander Gerst from the European Space Agency. He's seated in the right seat, right next to Commander Maxim Sarayev, who will command the Soyuz craft during its ascent. And then just off view a little bit more to our right is NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman. Gerst and Wiseman, the rookie space flyers of the bunch. They'll be the 213th and 214th astronauts to visit the International Space Station over its lifetime. Max Sarayev, the Russian cosmonaut, has 1 flight already under his belt and on his resume, flying back on expeditions 21-22. Right now, we're 43 minutes and 55 seconds away from launch. Again, the time a little after 1:13 in the morning over in Baikonur. The weather, as mentioned at the top, fairly good this time of year. Is right around the mid-70s, just a few clouds in the sky, but altogether very good conditions for launch. Again, those astronauts already in the rocket have been in there for some time. The crew in getting live views of the crew still. Again, Alexander Gerst there. The rocket in the final stages of preparation, as we are just a little under 43 minutes away from launch. The crew was awakened at about 6:26 a.m. Central Time this morning, which is about 8.5 hours prior to their launch time. Crew members participating in their final pre-launch activities. Before departing, the crew members observe a long-standing tradition of autographing the doors of the Cosmonaut Hotel in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. The hotel where all the crew members stay in the time immediately leading up to their launch. You can see the signatures from numerous astronauts and cosmonauts over the years, right before they made their own journeys into space. Beautiful! Alexander Gerst, Max Sarayev, and Reed Wiseman.
Dear friends,
Then the crew members received a traditional blessing from a Russian Orthodox priest. The priest also taking some time to bless the rocket, and usually members of the media before launch. Then around 8:57 a.m. Central Time today, the crew departed the Cosmonaut Hotel, saying goodbye to well-wishers and family on the way out, and members of the media. They again departed the Cosmonaut Hotel and boarded a bus, getting ready for their ride to the integration and suit-up facility at Building 254, located at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Again, this some video from earlier today, as the crew was about 8 hours or about 6 hours or so away from launch. Again, Alexander Gerst from the European Space Agency on the left, Max Sarayev in the middle, the Russian cosmonaut, and Reed Wiseman of NASA on the right. Departing the Cosmonaut Hotel and boarding their bus for the ride over to the integration and suit-up facility.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Rob. Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. Hey, teammate. Frankie!
Ellie, you good or you want to get higher?
Oh, look at the love. Oh, isn't that neat?
Here you can see the bus departing the Cosmonaut Hotel. The crew later arrived at Building 254 at about 9:42 a.m. Central Time. Each crew member underwent their final medical exams, then suited up in their Sokol launch and entry suits, which you can see being prepared here. The suits were pressurized to ensure the integrity of their seals before the crew was ready to leave for the launch pad. The actual suit-up activities begin around 10:27 a.m. Central Time today, and that was about 4.5 hours prior to the scheduled launch time.
That's very good. But this has Да.
thank you.
And at this point, you can see each of the crew members conducting those pressurization checks on their Sokol launch and entry suits. These again done to ensure the integrity of all of the seals on the suits prior to the crew making their way to the launch pad. Also there in the room with the three cosmonauts, you'll see the backup crew for tonight's launch. It's Anton Shkaplerov from the Russian Space Agency, Samantha Christopher Reddy, another European Space Agency astronaut, and NASA astronaut Terry Virts as well. Again, the two astronauts and cosmonaut taking their time to get into the seat and do these pressure checks. Once they're done doing the pressure and leak checks on the Sokol suits, they get a chance to move over and talk to their family members for one final time from behind a protective pane of glass to maintain their quarantine status. Also in the room, various Russian, NASA, and European Space Agency officials and managers, along with the friends and family.
Could you please say a couple of words to hundreds and thousands of people who are watching? And about those people who support you. Without those who support us, we wouldn't be able to accomplish our mission.
Hi, Ellie. Hi, Katie. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Right now?
When you're up in space.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I'll even send them to you directly. You don't even have to go on Twitter to find them. Drafty, he is in our spacecraft right now. And then I'll get in first, and I'll go get in my seat, and this guy named Ildar, a very good guy, he's going to strap me all in, and then he'll strap Alex in. And then when Max comes down, Ildar will give Max Drafty, and Max will hang him up on the hatch, and then we'll close the hatch, make sure he looks just right, and then we'll be ready to roll.
Question, and she's shy. I'm going to say it. Excited?
I am unbelievably excited. Excited to go with Dana? I don't know. Hopefully I'm just...
How far do you can be from Earth?
I will only be about 250 miles. So, like from Texas to Mississippi, not very far. So when I fly over Houston, wave, I might be able to see you. Probably not. Wait, big. Yeah.
You're all looking so fine in your suits. Yeah. And I have to say, finally the real ones. На конце концов, настоящие скафандры.
Yeah, we don't look as good as some other. I'm with you, Ellie. I'm so glad we got to hug each other in Star City. Those were great hugs. We got good pictures. I love you too, Katie. Hi, Ellie. I love you, Ellie.
Deinen Kollegen auch. Wir freuen uns natürlich, dass das jetzt losgeht und wir drücken die alle ganz fest die Daumen für einen guten Start und vor allem auch gute Arbeit an Bord der ISS.
Ja, vielen Dank und liebe Grüße an alle Mitarbeiter des DLR und der ESA.
Salut. Bon voyage to you three. I think that it's very nice to see the three of you together. And I can tell you that all...
Right here on screen, the ESA Director General, Jean-Jacques Dordan.
I was saying that all ESA people is behind you, so you will see the kick at la launch. It's 2,000 people kicking you to help you
emails with best wishes from colleagues, from friends. So it's good to know that there's this huge team behind us. And please forward my best regards to everyone at home. And I'll give a wave during liftoff if the camera switches over to me for a minute maybe.
Oh, he doesn't.
I think you should pay me a little bit money, you know. I'm please hold this camera.
I can also do it.
Oh, you twice, or even for me.
Wish you all the best. All your colleagues, as DG said, are behind you, and we will have an eye on you throughout your mission. And I would like to wish you really all the best. Good stay in orbit. As I wrote you in SMS, use every second, half a year, as you...
In hindsight, still happy birthday.
Have a great time, enjoy yourselves, take good care of Space Station. Absolutely.
Again, numerous Russian, NASA, and European Space Agency managers and officials getting a chance to talk to the crew.
I congratulate you on your readiness to launch. Everything is nominal. I've just checked. We will be waiting for you back here on Earth. Yes, of course, we're a little bit nervous, but this is normal. This is just the kind of nervousness that is not fear, but rather the anticipation. Everything is good. We've done everything we could to prepare.
So once all of those preparations were complete, final farewells were said, the crew left Site 254, waving farewell to everyone as they walked down.
Mr. Chair of the State Commission, the crew of Expedition 4041 is ready for the space flight.
Crew speaking with the Russian Space State Commission.
It's great when it rains. It's good for the road. Maxim, good luck. Good luck to you all.
And again, with those farewells complete, the crew members boarding their bus at about 11:57 a.m. Central Time today for the ride over to launch pad number 1. That drive typically takes about 25 minutes. The crew were able to arrive at the pad at 12:22 p.m. Central Time, so just this afternoon for us here in Houston.
Mr. Chairman of the State Commission, the crew is here at the launch pad. We're ready to launch. Thank you all.
And with that, the 3 crew members waving goodbye at the pad and boarding the elevator for the ride to the top of the Soyuz rocket in order to board into their Soyuz capsule.
All the best. And have a great flight.
So there they are again, loading into that elevator for the ride to the top of the Soyuz rocket in order to board their capsule. 3 have been on board now for about an hour and a half. Soyuz rocket itself, billowing oxygen, was fueled about 3 hours prior to launch. There, the Russian Orthodox priest doing one final blessing as the crew rides the elevator. And now a live look back at the launch pad, 27 minutes, 30 seconds from launch. The pad's service structure components have been lowered, and the clamshell gantry service towers have been retracted in preparation for liftoff. At this point, suit leak checks are underway and the re-entry vehicle testing is complete. The emergency escape system on the vehicle has been armed, that arming coming at about 2:23 p.m. Central. The escape tower at the very top would fire in the event of a problem during launch, designed to pull the spacecraft and the crew clear of the booster, enabling the Soyuz capsule to parachute to a safe landing, again in the event of an emergency during the launch or in the early stages of the climb to orbit. So today's launch will mark the 5th time that a Soyuz vehicle is scheduled to dock to the orbiting complex in the same day, docking only 4 orbits or about 6 hours after today's launch. Just 2 minutes before launch, the International Space Station will fly directly overhead at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. At the time of the launch, the station will be flying at an altitude of just about 260 statute miles over southeast Kazakhstan. The launch is precisely timed for the moment when the Earth's rotation will place the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the plane of the orbit of the International Space Station. The time of the Soyuz spacecraft's orbital insertion, about 9 minutes after its initial launch. The ISS will be about 1,677 statute miles ahead as the rendezvous begins. The 6-hour rendezvous will culminate with a docking to the International Space Station's Rassvet module, that coming at 8:48 p.m. Central Time tonight, 5:48 a.m. Moscow time, and 7:48 a.m. in the morning tomorrow, where Russian, American, and European dignitaries, guests, and family will be watching the events unfold. Should an issue occur in the first 4 hours of the flight, the Soyuz vehicle and its crew can default to a 2-day rendezvous with the docking that would occur in the early evening hours Central Time on May 30th. Just such a scenario unfolded back in March after the launch of Steve Swanson, Alexander Skvortsov, and Oleg Artemyev aboard their Soyuz TMA-13M spacecraft, in which an orbital adjustment burn did not occur as planned. A 2-day rendezvous began and the 3 successfully docked to the International Space Station on March 27th. And so, like always, we spoke with the crew members before the flight about their upcoming expedition, their careers preparing for the flight, and what they are most looking forward to. As we count down to launch, just about 24.5 minutes away now. Let's hear more from the crew in their own words.
The new members of the International Space Station's Expedition 40 crew share an affinity for exploration on this planet, but they're also eager to take up the challenge of setting the stage for future exploration off the planet. Max Sarayev is the son of a Soviet Air Force officer. He was born in Chelyabinsk in the southern Ural region of Russia, north of Kazakhstan, but his family moved all over the country during his childhood. All along, he intended to become a military pilot. The idea of becoming a cosmonaut was just an extension of that idea.
And I thought I'd give it a shot because the profession of a military pilot is very similar to that of a cosmonaut. Making quick decisions, making right decisions, something risky, something complicated, something challenging, something interesting, which brings lots of pleasure if you manage.
After high school in Noginsk, near Star City, Sarayev graduated from the Kasha Air Force Pilot School in the Crimea with a specialty in command tactical fighter aviation. Then he went to the Zhukovsky Air Force Academy to specialize in test and exploitation of aircraft and weapons systems. He applied to the Cosmonaut Corps and was selected the year before he finished at the academy. And while training in Star City, he also graduated from the Civil Service Academy of Russia as a lawyer. Sarayev's first flight was a 6-month tour on expeditions 21 and 22 in 2009 and 2010, during which he completed 1 spacewalk. Although he retired from the Russian Air Force as a colonel in 2012, he continues to work for the cause of human space exploration.
That's why we send humans in space, so that we move forward, we may discover something in the future, maybe not in so near future, but discovering some new worlds, new planets, something that will help us develop and move forward.
U.S. Navy Commander Reed Wiseman grew up in the suburbs of Baltimore, Maryland, far enough away from the city to be able to enjoy nature, learn about the world, and make the most of the freedom and encouragement he got from his parents.
And they always had boundaries, but it was exploration from the time I was born, going to the lake with my brother, learning on my own and figuring things out, and they gave me that freedom, and it was wonderful.
Wiseman earned a Bachelor's of Science in Computer and Systems Engineering and a commission in the Navy through the ROTC at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. After flight training, he was assigned to an F-14 squadron and made 2 deployments to the Middle East during Operations Southern Watch, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. During the second deployment, he was picked for the Navy's Test Pilot School. And later, while working at the Patuxent River Naval Air Station, he also earned a master's degree in systems engineering from Johns Hopkins. Wiseman made 2 more international deployments before he was picked for the astronaut program in 2009 and got the chance to resume the exploration he loved as a child.
We are curious, we are inquisitive, we are explorers by our very nature. And right now, the biggest exploration that a human can go on is 250 miles up on the space station. So to me, there's not even a question. Of course it's worth the risk. Just to go out there and push humanity to further than we've been, that's a no-brainer.
Dr. Alexander Gerst was born in Kunzelsau, a small town in rural south-central Germany. He liked being close to nature and looking up at the night sky, and his curiosity was piqued when his grandfather talked to people all over the world on his amateur radio.
One day he somehow managed to adjust his antenna such that it would actually broadcast to the moon. And he gave me the microphone and let me speak a few words into the radio. They would bounce back from the surface of the moon, and about 2.5 seconds later I would hear my own words in the radio, knowing as a 6-year-old that they were just on the moon. So it was impossible for me to grasp in the beginning.
Gerst started his exploration focused on this planet and earned a diploma in geophysics from the University of Karlsruhe in Germany, while also getting his master's in earth sciences from Victoria University in New Zealand, while working there developing new volcano monitoring techniques. He made 4 scientific missions to study volcanoes in Antarctica, while working on his doctorate in natural sciences at the Institute of Geophysics at the University of Hamburg. And during that time, he made good on a promise to himself that he would make at least one sincere effort to become an astronaut. He was selected for the astronaut corps by the European Space Agency in 2009, finished his PhD the following year, and has been focused ever since on his chance to be part of what he calls the first wave.
Being the first, wave of explorers on the way out, exploring the universe, to moon, asteroids, Mars, and beyond. That is, for me, such an important thing to do for humankind, for science.
And we're back now with a live view of the Soyuz on the launch pad in Baikonur. Right now, just 18 minutes, 37 seconds away before the launch. Liftoff scheduled for 2:57 p.m. Central, 1:57 a.m. Baikonur. So right now, a group of NASA representatives are down there in Baikonur, just a short distance away from the launch pad. For a quick update on activities there, let's go now to NASA Public Affairs Officer Rob Navius.
Dan, good afternoon and good morning from the Central Asian desert on a warm morning here. Temperatures in the 70s, heading for a high near triple figures by the time the Soyuz vehicle that stands less than a mile from us docks to the International Space Station. NASA is represented here for the second Soyuz crew launch of the year by Bill Gerstenmaier, the Associate Administrator for Spaceflight Operations, and Deputy ISS Program Manager Dan Hartman. A huge contingent of European Space Agency officials are on hand, led by their Director General, Jean-Jacques Dordain, as well as officials from the German Space Agency, DLR. After launch, we'll gather back in the town of Baikonur at a local hall where a special NASA television feed will be set up, enabling us to watch docking and hatch opening, and for VIPs and family members to place congratulatory calls to the newly arrived crew members. Over the launch pad, starry skies. Off on the distant horizon, some flashes of lightning, but nothing to be concerned about on a perfect morning for launch. That's it for now from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Back to you at Mission Control in Houston.
And thanks again, Rob. Still on track for that on-time liftoff today at 2:57 p.m. Central Time, 1:57 a.m. Baikonur time, just under 17 minutes now from launch. During the climb to orbit, tracking and telemetry is downlinked to ground stations along the flight path and is then routed to the launch control bunker near the launch pad in Baikonur and also to the Russian Mission Control Center just outside of Moscow. The flight is controlled from the bunker until shutdown of the third stage engine, when it's then transitioned over to the Russian Flight Control Center. You can see right here. Just seconds after the Soyuz reaches orbit, the vehicle's command and control systems will be activated. Stored computer commands will deploy navigation and communications antennas along with the solar arrays to begin collecting power for use by the onboard batteries in order to generate electricity for the Soyuz systems. The first antennas to be deployed will be the Core's rendezvous and docking antennas, which will be used to provide automatic range and rate of closure information on the final approach by the Soyuz for its docking with the Rassvet module. Immediately after reaching orbit, the crew will oversee the programmed activation sequence of a variety of systems just before the spacecraft passes out of range of those Russian ground stations. Some of those systems include the spacecraft's power supply system, along with its radio communication system, and also the critical motion control system. During the first orbit of today's flight, the Soyuz will automatically execute the first two of several orbital adjustment burns planned as the vehicle fine-tunes its path on towards the International Space Station. For now, though, we're just about to come up on 15 minutes before launch. As you heard Rob say, weather couldn't be better out there at the launch pad in the early morning hours in Baikonur. And as the Soyuz stands ready to launch Reid Wiseman, Max Sarayev, and Alexander Gerst towards their home in space for the next 6 months, they'll be having a busy time on board the station as they welcome a multitude of visiting spacecraft, as well as performing several spacewalks and conducting hundreds of experiments. Why don't we take a look now at what's in store for Expedition 40.
The International Space Station has been a working science laboratory and exploration outpost for more than 15 years and fostered advances in science and technology in that time. But it's the possibilities for future discoveries that have the crew members excited about this mission.
Potential is huge, of course, for space station. The idea on it is about discovery. We don't really know what we're going to learn, but we know we have the potential to learn many, many different things, and it's almost with basic science.
A real opportunity to do something useful, something helpful for humankind, so that humankind in the future would live better, longer, happier, that they develop, that it'll be more comfortable.
And not just here on Earth. Deep space exploration missions of the future will take years to complete, but the human body starts reacting to the space environment in far less time. And it's not just the loss of bone strength and muscle mass.
There are changes detected in the internal organs. Skin reacts differently, blood reacts differently.
So this crew will take part in a number of experiments as test subjects, gathering data to quantify those physical changes while searching for their causes. They will also each have daily exercise that is proven to keep crew members strong and fit while countering some of the negative effects of zero-G.
It gives us a unique possibility of actually doing research on how this condition in the bone develops and how we can think of countermeasures, how we can treat it, what medication works and what does not work.
Another study I signed up for is called the Sprint Physical Training, and what that's trying to do is determine Is it the amount of exercise that you do, or is it the intensity of the exercise? And so for sprint, every one of my workouts will go to max intensity.
To see if one or the other is more valuable. Some research focuses on the psychological effects of long-term isolation on the individual as well as on the group.
The better they work together, the better the team they are, the more results and the more advantages we gain from that flight. It is the psychological environment in the crew is a very important component of a successful flight.
The effects of being in space aren't just felt by the human bodies that are there. Station science is investigating other impacts that must be dealt with to support future exploration.
Not only does the body change itself, the actual cell itself of an organism will change when it senses zero gravity or microgravity. But they don't know why it's changing or really kind of how it's all working. So we're doing experiments using these plant cells and structures and finding out how they change and why they change.
On this mission, the station also hosts dozens of experiments in physical sciences, learning how fluids and materials and equipment cope with higher radiation and lower gravity than they encounter on Earth. And there are investigations into new technologies that will improve the chances of successful flights in the future.
If we are going to send humans to Mars, you'll never know what will break. And if we have a 3D printer where we could just, boom, print out a part, throw it in the machine, fix whatever's broken, this really opens up a whole new dimension of long-range space travel. So we will have the first capability for 3D printing on our expedition.
A scientist that I recently met actually told me that they just recently implanted a trachea to a person that they generated from stem cells that came out of space research. So some of these benefits you might not even actually hear about ever if you don't have one of these illnesses. But if you do, then you're in the position to get a much better treatment than you would have without space research.
There's a lot of spacewalking in the plan. From the Russian segment, EVAs are being prepared for June, August, and October to refresh external science experiments. And there are 3 U.S. spacewalks in the plan for the summer to begin configuring the station for its extended mission on orbit.
You'll see in Expedition 40 and 41, we're just going to start to lay the groundwork for extension of the space station. So we'll be doing a little bit of management both inside and outside, getting things moved around and prepared for this further exploration into the 2020s.
Over the next 6 months, most of the cargo ships that supply the station with food, fuel, clothing, and scientific supplies will make a call. The Russian Progress freighter, American commercial ships Dragon and Cygnus, and in August, the 5th of the European Space Agency's automated transfer vehicles, which will be the final ATV to fly. ATV has been a big success, and not just for the tons of supplies it has delivered to orbit. ATV gave the European space industry a chance to develop new technologies that are already being applied to the future.
The technologies that we use for ATV are actually being used for the future vehicles. So the service module of the MPCV Orion module that NASA builds will be actually an ESA development that is based on the ATV technology.
Expedition 40 ends when Swanson and his Russian crewmates head for home in early September. Sarayev becomes commander for Expedition 41, which will greet 3 new crew members near the end of the month. NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore, veteran cosmonaut Alexander Samokutyaev, and first-time flyer Elena Serova, who will be the first female cosmonaut to serve as an International Space Station crew member. That group will press ahead with the ongoing mission of the international partners.
Really just looking at getting the space station into its best possible configuration for extension into 2024, and really starting to lay some of the groundwork for bringing up commercial crew vehicles to the American segment here in the next few years.
To help support this mission and prepare for the long-range missions of tomorrow.
And back now with a live view of the Soyuz on the launch pad in Baikonur. We're now just under 8 minutes away before the launch. Liftoff scheduled for 2:57 p.m. Central Time, 1:57 a.m. Baikonur. Leak checks of the crew's launch suits at this point have been completed, those being completed just a few minutes ago. Soyuz vehicle onboard systems have been verified for flight. The launch abort system has been activated. The gyros and all the onboard flight data recorders have also been activated. We're continuing to get some live views from inside of the cabin. Again, you can see Alexander Gerst there with the German flag on his patch. Here another angle, you can see Reed Wiseman all the way in the back. And in the center seat, the Soyuz commander for this evening's launch, Max Sarayev. And so right about now, all the pre-launch preparations are now complete. At this point in the countdown, the Soyuz's first and second stage engines are ready for launch. The telemetry received from the rocket indicating all primary and backup systems are also ready for launch. Under 7 minutes now, 6 minutes, 40 seconds away. Everything continuing to march on time. At T-minus 7 minutes, the launch key has been inserted in the launch bunker. It is a real physical key used to launch the Soyuz rocket, transitioning the launch sequence into automatic mode. Things will pick up now over the next couple of minutes as we continue to close in on that 2:57 p.m. Central Time launch. So again, everything continuing to march forward. Weather couldn't be better right now out at the launch site. Good temperatures, a clear sky, as Public Affairs Officer Rob Navius indicated for us a little bit earlier. The three inside in their SOCA launch and entry suits. All of the leak checks completed. The Soyuz systems being confirmed, they're ready to go. At this point, 5 minutes, 30 seconds away from launch. Launch control reporting the range in Baikonur is clear. The Soyuz rocket ready to begin its journey to the International Space Station. And as we get closer, some things to look out for. You'll see the first umbilical tower separating from the booster rocket at about T-minus 35 seconds. The next major visual signal will be the second umbilical tower at T-minus 15 separating. And at this point, we are now under 4 minutes from launch. The onboard systems of the Soyuz rocket being switched over to onboard control. Commander's cockpit displays and controls have been activated. Again, Max Sarayev in the center seat, the Soyuz commander for this evening's flight. Crew members will also have their helmets closed, putting them on suit oxygen inside the craft. And then very shortly, all of the fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines will be purged with nitrogen to help fireproof them by removing any excess vapors from the fuel and oxidizer loaded inside already. And now we're coming on just 3 minutes away from launch. And another milestone now at T-minus 245. The booster tank being pressurized now for flight. This being done to optimize the flow of fuel and help adding some structural support to the rocket. Here a close-up of the Soyuz encased by that shroud with the launch abort system on top. Everything continuing to look great for this launch, just about 2 minutes and 20 seconds from now. And T-minus 1 minute 30 seconds from launch. At this point, the ground propellant feed has now been terminated to the rocket. And T-minus 1 minute, the Soyuz now on internal power, and we have auto sequence start. So again, watch out for those two umbilical towers, which will separate from the booster. That first umbilical separating, indicating we're about 35 seconds away from launch. Has been issued. That second umbilical retracting. The booster is beginning to fire. We have preliminary booster ignition. And liftoff. Liftoff of Reed Wiseman, Max Sarayev, and Alexander Gerst, the international crew on their way to the International Space Station. Right now getting good first stage performance. The Soyuz delivering 930,000 pounds of thrust from its 4 boosters and single core engine. The first stage of the Soyuz measuring 68 feet in length and 24 feet in diameter, burning liquid fuel for the first 2 minutes and 6 seconds of the flight. Now just about 1 minute 10 seconds into the flight of Soyuz TMA-13M, velocity of the vehicle at 1,100 miles per hour. Getting an indication the second stage performing as expected. And getting confirmation the launch shroud surrounding the Soyuz craft has been jettisoned. The rocket's altitude now at about 48 miles. A little over 3 minutes into launch now, the Soyuz craft traveling at a speed of about 4,700 miles an hour. 3 crew members giving the thumbs up inside, the core stage performing as expected. That core engine of the Soyuz 56 feet in length, 13.5 feet in diameter with a single engine and 4 fuel chambers, providing between 178,000 and 222,000 pounds of thrust depending on the altitude. It'll fire for about a total of 3 minutes and 28 seconds. The stage is going to continue to burn until about the 4-minute, 43-second mark. Soyuz uses what's called a hot staging technique, so the third stage will ignite while the second stage is still burning. That's why the Soyuz has that small open area in between the second and third stages. Again, continuing to get views inside the cabin. Again, keep your eye on the giraffe hanging in the top left corner. The crew is always using a token to signify when the crew is in microgravity, so you'll see that float at the end of today's flight. Continuing to get good reports, all systems reported as nominal, going as expected. And pretty soon coming up on second stage shutdown and third stage ignition. And getting confirmation the second stage is shut down and separated. The core booster separated at an altitude of 105 miles. Soyuz now being propelled by a single engine of the Soyuz's third stage. That engine providing 67,000 pounds of thrust. It'll burn for about 4 minutes and 2 seconds. Getting reports of third stage engine performing as expected. So again, continuing to get good indications from the vehicle as the third stage engine continues to fire. It burns for 4 minutes and 2 seconds. So it has about 2 minutes and 20 seconds or so left in its firing time. And you'll continue to get a view from here inside the Russian Flight Control Center. Now tied in to the rocket as the third stage continues to send the astronauts into its preliminary orbit. And now 7 minutes 30 seconds since that launch from Baikonur. Velocity of the vehicle now almost 13,500 miles an hour. And once this third stage delivers the Soyuz to orbit and the module is separated, again, a series of pre-programmed commands will be executed in order to prepare the Soyuz for orbital operations. The stored commands are known as time-tagged commands. They allow many of the Soyuz systems to be automatically activated by onboard computers at very precise times that are already stored on board. Again, all indications continuing, the third stage continuing to perform as expected. Just about 30 seconds now expected until third stage cutoff and separation. And just about 15 seconds now. And you saw that bit of a jolt for them as that third stage cuts off and separates. The single liquid fueled engine shutting down and dropping away at an altitude of about 125 statute miles. The third stage will perform an avoidance maneuver by opening a valve in its liquid oxygen tank. But again, the third stage separated. And getting confirmation, all systems being deployed successfully, confirmation of spacecraft separation, the capsule, the crew inside safely in orbit, automatically executing the pre-programmed commands to deploy those antennas and solar arrays. Soyuz itself now orbiting at an altitude of about 143 miles by 118 miles. That orbit will be raised systematically over the course of the next 6 hours as the Soyuz craft draws closer to the International Space Station. And control of the spacecraft from here on out will be overseen from the Russian Mission Control Center just outside of Moscow. So again, the Soyuz TMA-13M spacecraft now successfully in orbit. All readings pointing to a flawless launch as it made its ascent. Max Sarayev, Alexander Gerst, and Reed Wiseman on their way towards the International Space Station. As mentioned, they'll have about 6 hours now as they raise their orbit through a series of adjustment burns to bring them closer to their docking to the International Space Station. All of reports coming into the control center indicating tracking no issues with the launch, a flawless launch today from Baikonur, Kazakhstan. And at this point, the Coors automated rendezvous system on the Soyuz craft being powered up. Right here we're seeing a data display from the Soyuz spacecraft, which will be used during the final approach and docking that we'll be bringing in a couple hours. So again, just to recap, successful launch today at 2:57 and 40 seconds p.m. Central Time. The three on their way, Max Sarayev, Reed Wiseman, and Alexander Gerst, the next three crew members of Expedition 40, on their way to the International Space Station following a flawless launch from Baikonur, Kazakhstan. Up next, we'll have a couple of launch replays. We'll give you a quick preview of all of the events to come this evening. Our post-launch video file coming on at 5 p.m. all times Central. At 8 p.m. we'll resume live coverage for the docking of the Soyuz craft to the International Space Station. That docking expected to come at 8:48 p.m. Central. We'll break away for a little while the crews conduct a series of leak checks, then come back on the air at 10 p.m. Central for our hatch opening coverage. Soyuz hatch opening expected to take place at 10:25 p.m. Central Time tonight. And then tomorrow at 12 a.m. In the morning, we'll have our docking and hatch opening video file for you. And then be sure to tune in again tomorrow for 10 a.m.'s Expedition 40 Space Station Live, where again we'll recap all of the evening's events. So with that, a successful launch, and looking forward now to a successful docking as the crew of Expedition 40 is making their way to the